It all began on a chilly autumn evening when a group of friends gathered at an old, creaky house on the outskirts of town. The house belonged to Leah, whose great-grandmother had passed away just a few months earlier. The house was old but had a strange charm to it, with its worn wooden floors and dusty, forgotten rooms. It was said to have been in the family for generations, and like all old houses, it came with its own share of stories. Leah's friends, Mark, Sophie, and Tyler, arrived at dusk. The air was thick with excitement and nervous anticipation because they had something special planned for the night, a Ouija board session. None of them really believed in the supernatural, but the idea of contacting spirits had always intrigued them. Leah had found the board in the attic among her great-grandmother's old possessions, tucked away in a box marked with an eerie symbol they couldn't decipher. The box had a strange, musty smell to it, as if it hadn't been opened in decades. The Ouija board itself was made of dark, polished wood, with letters carved deeply into its surface. The planchette was unusually heavy, made of what looked like bone. They set up the board in the dimly lit living room, candles flickering around them, casting long, ghostly shadows on the walls. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, making the windows rattle. It was the perfect setting for a night of terror, even if they didn't realize it yet. Sophie, always the skeptic, scoffed as they placed their fingers on the planchette. "This is just a silly game," she muttered, rolling her eyes. "You know these things don't work." Mark, on the other hand, couldn't shake the feeling of unease creeping up his spine. He had heard enough ghost stories growing up to know that some things shouldn't be meddled with. Leah, in a quiet voice, spoke the first question. "Is anyone here with us?" For a moment, nothing happened. The group exchanged glances, suppressing nervous laughter. But then, the planchette moved. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, it slid across the board, spelling out a chilling word: yes. Tyler chuckled, trying to brush it off as someone playing a trick, but the tension in the room was palpable. Leah swallowed hard and asked the next question. "Who are you?" Again, the planchette moved, faster this time. Margaret. Leah's heart stopped. That's my great-grandmother's name," she whispered, her voice trembling. Sophie's face went pale. "Okay, that's enough. Whoever is doing this, stop it." But no one was pushing the planchette, at least, no one in the room. It was moving of its own accord now, almost violently, as if something unseen was guiding it. The candles flickered wildly, and the air grew colder. Leah's voice was shaky as she asked, "Margaret, is that really you?" The planchette jerked to yes, but then, without warning, it moved again, this time spelling out something more sinister: Danger. Mark stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "This isn't funny anymore. We should stop," but they couldn't stop. The board seemed to have a life of its own now, and the planchette began spelling out more words, faster and faster. Get. Suddenly, the candles blew out, plunging the room into darkness. In the pitch-black silence, they heard it, a faint whisper. A voice none of them recognized, raspy and ancient, filled the room. "Leave now, before it's too late," panic set in. They scrambled to turn on their phones' flashlights, but the devices wouldn't work. The darkness seemed alive, pressing in on them, suffocating. And then they saw it, a shadow, darker than the night itself, looming in the corner of the room. It was tall, impossibly tall, and its eyes gleamed with a malevolent light. Slowly, it began to move toward them, the floorboards creaking with each step. The temperature dropped even further, their breath visible in the cold air. Leah screamed, and suddenly, the room was filled with a deafening crash as the old wooden door slammed shut on its own. They were trapped. The shadow figure stopped just a few feet away from them. Its eyes burned like coals, and its voice, dripping with malice, echoed through their minds. "You should not have disturbed me." Without warning, the Ouija board flew off the table, hitting the wall with a loud thud. The planchette spun wildly on the floor, carving strange symbols into the wood. In a blind panic, Mark managed to break the spell. He grabbed Leah's arm and yanked her toward the door, pulling it open with sheer adrenaline. The others followed, sprinting into the night, their hearts pounding in their chests. Behind them, the shadow lingered, watching, waiting. They didn't stop running until they were far from the house, their breaths ragged, their minds racing. None of them spoke a word. The silence was heavy, filled with questions they didn't dare ask. The next day, Leah returned to the house with her father, determined to get rid of the cursed board. But when they went to the living room, the Ouija board was gone, as if it had never existed. From that day on, Leah swore she heard whispers in the night, her great-grandmother's voice warning her of the shadows that lurked just beyond the veil. The house, once filled with warmth and memories, became a place of dread, where the shadows never stopped whispering and watching. Some things are better left undisturbed.